Hello and welcome back to another episode of Not Overthinking. Taimur, how are we doing today?
Doing great, man. I woke up at quarter to 5 a.m. and I've been up since then
Nice. That's
with
very good.
with the child that you can see in the carrier if you're watching this on video.
Oh, that's so cute.
Um, yeah, basically my routine these days, my grind set is on a normal day, I'll wake up at 6 a.m. I'll take the baby from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And I'll just like strap her into the carrier and she's just like sleeping with me. So she'll just kind of do that. And then I get a solid like it's not really 4 hours, probably like from 6, probably close to 7, I'll like strap her into the carrier because I'll like bounce her around and stuff a bit and do a nappy change or whatever, make my coffee. And then basically from like 7 to 10, she's just like sleeping in the carrier. And I have like solo time on the computer, mate. Wife's asleep, the baby's asleep.
Mate, that's your grind set.
That's my solo morning time.
You're absolutely locked in. And she's locked into
Yeah,
you as well.
and she's locked in, yeah. But she's not been sleeping very well the last couple of nights. And so Lucia basically hadn't slept Lucia basically hadn't slept last night. And so I was like, okay, I can get up at like 5 or 6, and then Lucia can sleep for like 4 or 5 hours. So that's why I woke up a bit earlier than usual today. That's the grind set, mate.
Mate, it's all happening.
Yeah. How's things with you?
Things are good. I have, I think, two
What's your
pieces of
grind?
news.
Oh, yeah.
What's my grind set? Yeah, okay, I'll tell you about my grind set first, and then I'll tell you about the news. Well, the grind set is, this week's been a bit different. We've been having very late nights this week. But the goal grind set is wake up around 8, start work around 9. Work meaning first 4 hours is just sort of thinking about and working on the next video, usually, or product or something like that. We've got 1 and a bit team members who come over in person. We've got Mark, our new YouTube producer, and then there's a guy called Kevon who we're trialing as like a product developer kind of thing. So Mark and Kevon will often come over around 10. Sometimes I go for a little walk with one of them, with like recording our conversation using VoicePal, the AI writing app that me and my team are building. And based on that, we'll sort of like flesh out the ideas for the videos, and usually I'll try and film a video. And then lunch is 1 till 2. And then I always have on the calendar like a gym block from like 2 till 3, which I actually fulfill maybe 20% of the time.
Really?
And then in the evening, afternoon, evening, it's often like calls with the UK or just like more work stuff. But last week, big piece of news number 1, Stormlight Archive Book 5, Wind and Truth was released.
Oh,
like,
yeah, I heard
literally
about this.
2 days
Yeah.
ago. Mate, it's like, you know how back in the day when it was like a Harry Potter book was being released and it was like
Yeah.
a major cultural event?
Yeah.
It's like that, but the books are way longer and way more complicated, and like I feel more excited about this book being released than I think than I did about Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows being released. Or maybe similar.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Bloody hell.
probably similar.
Yeah,
Because
my
the thing with
friend
Harry
ran
Potter
this
and the
with me
Deathly Hallows
yesterday.
is you can kind of tear through it in like a day, whereas with this one, it's like a 60-hour audiobook at normal speed. And so I'm trying my best to sort of actually savor it, because I regret how fast I tore through like the Deathly Hallows.
Incredible. Yeah,
So I've
Imran
been
was saying
sort
you
of,
guys have been chatting about it and I think he's been reading it as well.
yeah, mate. We've got our little Sander Lads WhatsApp group with everyone who's into Brandon Sanderson. Oh, it's so sick, man. So sick. If anyone's listening to this and you haven't started reading the Brandon Sanderson books, start with The Final Empire, book 1 of the Mistborn series. And then once you get hooked on that, then your next 5 years of reading are like literally sorted. So last week when this book came out, I was like, you know what? I have earned the right to take a day off work to be able to read this book
You took a whole day
non-stop.
off just to read.
I took like half a day off. I took the
Wow.
afternoon off to just sort of sit on the sofa. We have one of these, so it's weird. We have one of these sofas that you press a button and it sort of reclines, like the
Oh, yeah.
leg comes out. I never thought
Yeah.
I'd be the guy to get a sofa like that.
Oh, dude, it's so
But
good. It's amazing putting your legs
it's
up like
actually
that.
so sick. Like
So,
there's another button that you can support your head. And when we were going furniture shopping a couple of months ago, I tried this in the shop, and I literally had tears in my eyes as to how like supported I felt. And Izzy's sister was with us at the time. They were like, "Whoa, why are you crying about the sofa?" And I was like, "Oh, I just feel so safe. I feel so supported in this chair."
I've
And
been
so,
supported for the first time.
hey, I didn't say that. But yeah, I felt so supported, and I was like, "This is glorious." So now we also got this fluffy blanket from Muji. So now my
Oh,
kind of my workstation is I don't work on my computer anymore,
oh,
even
really?
though I've got like a Mac Mini and a studio display and a desk and all that stuff. Because this room is a bit too like it looks cute on camera, but it's a bit too functional. Like there's a big ass light there. There's like camera there, camera there, camera
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah,
Like it's just not
yeah,
vibey. Whereas I just recline on the sofa, make my little coffee. We've got this
yeah.
little thing, another thing from Muji, which is like it's like a wooden board with a cushion underneath it. So it's like a laptop table.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We got one of those. Yeah, it's good.
And it's like sometimes it goes on the side for my little coffee because Izzy worries
Yeah,
about spilling coffee on the sofa, obviously. Sometimes
yeah.
it's on my little lap with my little laptop. Increasingly, it's been like on my sort of with the Kindle on propped up on it, reading the book.
Hmm.
So that's my grind set, man. I just like lounge on the sofa with a little fluffy blanket and pretend to do some work, and the team does everything else. So it's very good.
Great. That sounds awesome. What's your other bit of news?
The other bit of news is podcast exclusive. We are having a baby. Um,
Woo!
woo,
Obviously,
mental.
I'm already aware of this. I think this is dropped on YouTube as well already.
This has dropped on YouTube and Instagram as well. So we dropped it on
Nice.
Instagram, and then Izzy published her like life update video that talks
Yeah.
about this.
How did you guys
Um,
decide whether you want to go like relatively real time about these kinds of life updates? Because as we've discussed,
yeah,
I'm reluctant to go real time on big life updates. You know, how did
yeah.
you
I
guys
think
decide?
actually a big part of it was that Izzy is getting bigger and makes YouTube videos,
Oh, okay, yeah.
and so
Cat's
like
out of the
with
bag.
the cat somewhat gets out of the bag fairly quickly. And then also if we wanted to post pictures together on Instagram, which we kind of do,
Okay,
again, it
yeah,
sort of gives the game away. So it's not
yeah.
quite real time. There's still a significant delay, but yeah, well,
How much
significant
delay?
isn't like I don't know. I lose track of time,
Oh,
but
yeah.
yeah.
Nice. How are
So
you feeling about it?
mostly for that reason.
How are you feeling about it?
I'm feeling great about it. I was fairly keen to get cracking on the kids thing sort of sooner rather than later,
Hmm.
and I just feel like it's the next step, really. I feel like I've done everything else that I've wanted to do.
Yeah,
I've ticked all the proverbial boxes. I don't really have a bucket list of sort of things to do before I have a kid. I'm not that
yeah,
enamored with traveling because people say, "Oh, traveling becomes hard when you have a kid." I'm sure.
yeah,
I'm sure. Where there's a will, there's a way.
yeah.
And so it always just felt like the next natural step. And now that it's happening, I'm looking forward to it. I've started like listening to the various parenting audiobooks and
Oh, yeah.
gotten getting recommendations from friends and that kind of stuff.
Nice. How real does it feel for you?
Not very. It still feels like an
Ah,
abstract concept. So we'd look at the scans and stuff and be like, I would try and feel that like, whoa, it's my baby girl. I have to go, by the way. That's my baby girl in there, kind of thing.
yeah.
But it still doesn't. It still sort of feels, yeah, it feels like an abstract concept.
Mm.
How did it feel for you before and after?
Yeah, I think it felt very abstract. Uh, yeah, I mean, before she was born, yeah, I didn't. It felt like, yeah, I didn't really have any kind of profound experience about it, or like, yeah, obviously I was like happy about it and stuff, and like looking forward to it. But like, apart from that, it's like, yeah, I think one of our friends, Godwin, he said it's a bit like your wife is in a TV show and you're kind of just like watching this TV show of your wife going through this like pregnancy. And I think that was a good metaphor because yeah, you don't really know. Yeah, I mean the pregnancy stuff is crazy as we talked about on the last pod maybe like a month or two ago. Um, but as the dad, you're not really like that part of it. So yeah, I think it didn't really feel that real. I think even now we're like a couple of months in. Here's the thing. I think I can still sort of conceptualize or like experience having a baby as like in terms of other things that I have going on in my life or other things I've experienced. Obviously it's like, the most important thing now, etc., etc. But I can still sort of think about it in pre-existing terms of like, okay, we got sort of my friends and family, my job, my hobbies. Now I've got an extra thing, the kid. And the kid is obviously like, higher up on the priority list than the other stuff. And, it kind of means that do less of the other stuff or whatever, and like you get, there's a lot of like really nice, unique things about it. But I think I can still conceive of it in the same kind of terms that I would conceive of other things in my life. Whereas I think for Lucia, it's like she's sort of on a new sort of existential plane of experience, like she can't really describe it or, she conceive of it in pre-existing terms. It's just like this completely new thing that's like completely changed everything or something. So, yeah, I haven't had quite that experience. I think a lot of guys I've spoken to say that like it's just kind of a gradual thing for the guy.
Yeah.
And I feel like that as well, where like, yeah, I feel like clearly the baby and Lucia have this sort of primal, otherworldly bond that I don't have with the baby. For me, it's like, it's like, the more you give, the more you get. Like the more time I like put in, the more our relationship gets better, and she like, is more comfortable with me and this kind of stuff. But like, we don't have this otherworldly bond in the way that like she has with her mum.
What do you mean that the more you put in, the more you get? Like, yeah. Well, what do you mean the relationship gets better?
Um, I guess I kind of mean, even so. I'm very sure she like knows who I am and sort of feels something towards me. But I mean, even a few weeks ago, I was thinking, yeah, I mean, I still sometimes think like, look, if some other dude, came home one evening and like picked her up, would she know it's not me? Like, how much would she care? Like, would she? Whereas if like Lucia's not around, that would be obviously a huge issue. But like, if I was swapped out for some other guy,
I mean, I tried
I don't
picking her
know how
up
much
last
the
time I was in
baby.
London, and she was crying basically every time I picked her up. But
Really?
I'm not sure if that was like coincidence or
Hmm.
recognition.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just not sure to be honest. I mean, maybe there's some good signs on this, but yeah, I'm not sure. But it feels like, yeah, it feels like the more time I spend with her, the more stuff I do with her, the more comfortable she is around me, and like, she's pretty comfortable now. But I had to start from zero. I was starting from zero, whereas um, Lucia was like, already on a different, like I said, plane of
And
existence.
so like, can you sort of feel slash see that like connection between the kid and Lucia, and sort of feel that it's different from the bond that you have, or is it more like an
Yeah.
intellectual understanding of
No, 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 no. I
mother
think
and
I can
father?
definitely see it. No, no, I think I can definitely see it. I think particularly when it comes to like sleeping and stuff, um, where like she's just so comfortable, just like lying next to Lucia and sleeping like that. And yeah, there's just like, I mean, with me, basically, this carrier thing is a good setup where she'll like go to sleep quite quickly. Um, I think I'm pretty good at like soothing her if she's like crying about something. But yeah, I think there does seem to be a level of safety and comfort that she has with Lucia that I don't think she has with me.
How do you feel about that?
It's fine. Yeah, it's the way of the world. Yeah, yeah. I don't feel like, yeah, yeah, just the way things are. Yeah, I don't feel bad about it at all or anything like that. Yeah,
Interesting. So yeah, that's me. Baby girl on the way, and yeah, I guess we can get some hand me downs from you.
yeah, yeah. We'll
That'll,
definitely have some hands.
that'll be very handy.
Yeah,
Yeah. You have some interesting news as well on the work
I've
front.
had some news. Yeah, I mean, this is public for anyone who follows my socials or whatever. This is like relatively public now. But about 5 weeks ago, uh, Causal was acquired by a company called Lucanet, and now our product, our team, etc., we're all part of this bigger company, and that's been a big change.
Okay, so how much can you tell us about this?
Yeah, I can tell you some stuff about it.
Okay, what can you tell us about this?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I won't share numbers or anything like that, but I can kind of walk through the process a little bit because I think it is a bit of a mystical process where there's not that much like, you know, it's not talked about super publicly. Like there's
Yeah.
a couple of blog posts and blog
Okay.
books or something.
Okay. Wait. First big question: are you like sort of ridiculously rich now that you never have to work again, kind of thing? That's like the impression that a lot of people have of like startup acquisitions.
Um, I wouldn't say that. Yeah,
Okay. Nice.
I'd say it's like a, so I think it was a great decision for like the business and the products and things like this. It's not a like sort of it was obviously not like a Facebook acquires Instagram for $1 billion or whatever kind of acquisition where everyone's like you know now bazillionaires or whatever. It definitely wasn't like that. It was more of like a sort of middle of the road like you know good, definitely alhamdulillah, good financial outcome for us, good financial outcome for the team. Investors make some money. Like, it's kind of good for everyone basically. And we're continuing to do the causal stuff just within the bigger company with more resources. We can just like grow a lot faster within this bigger company, which I can talk about in a sec. So I think it was like good outcome, not like everyone gets like ridiculously rich kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. So what can you share about the process?
So we were approached by these guys, Lucanet, in March-ish, something like March, and they were basically looking to add a product like ours to their portfolio. So they have various like finance team software. So they have like financial reporting software, consolidation, and a bunch of like normal people will not know what this stuff means, but if you're a finance team, there's a bunch of stuff you need to do, and they have a bunch of software to help you with that stuff. And in Europe, they're kind of one of the leading companies doing this kind of thing, and they've been growing pretty quickly, and they want to start like adding a few extra products to their suite. And so they've done a couple of acquisitions before us, and we're kind of now their financial modeling kind of product within their product suite. The kind of rationale for them is basically that they want to be able to sell more stuff to their customers and help their customers more. Their customers have been asking for something like Causal for a long time because LucaNet's product can do a bunch of stuff, but it can't do the kind of detailed modeling stuff that Causal can do. And so they kind of know that, look, if we had this modeling type thing, we know our customers want it. They've been asking for it for ages. They're already using us for a bunch of other things. And so everything can be nicely integrated and, all this kind of stuff. So that's kind of the business case essentially. And that's also the business case for us where I think what we've done a good job on is we built what I think is like the best product out there when it comes to modeling specifically. So like the formula side of things, all that kind of stuff. We're not the strongest product in terms of reporting and some of the other things that these kind of products need to do. And we were still pretty early in going to market. So, we have a few hundred customers, we're not at like a big scale or anything like that. And we're still figuring out like sales and marketing and all this kind of stuff. And so the business case for us is essentially, look, we've built a great product. The product is sick. It's hard to take it to market, and that's what we're figuring out how to do. If we join these guys, we won't have to figure that stuff out on our own kind of thing, because they already have like, thousands of customers, most of whom want something like Causal. And so we can, start selling Causal to their customers pretty quickly. We don't have to like set up all of the stuff it takes to do that. They have a really good brand, trusted brand, etc. among these finance people, etc., etc. So for us, it's like, okay, we could grow much faster if we join these guys than we would be able to do on our own. And it also de-risks it because, maybe we would have figured out that stuff. And, we were kind of growing and, things were kind of, we were figuring out stuff along the way. But I don't know, maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, like we wouldn't have figured out enough stuff or whatever to grow quickly enough. Or, maybe the some competitive landscape would change or some crazy AI stuff. So for us, it kind of de-risked the future of the biz and lets us grow a lot more quickly. And then for Lucanet, basically lets them get a bunch more money and add a lot more value for their customers.
How does it feel for you to now be? So, are you now like an employee of Lucanet, or how does this work? Going from like owning your own destiny to an extent to now being an employee, if that is the shift.
Yeah, I mean, so like our whole, we're kind of our own like little business unit within LucaNet now. So like our team and stuff is all exactly the same. So it hasn't felt like, oh, we've like moved to a new country or something where we're having to like completely change everything. It's more like, we were here and now we've been put here. And broadly things are operating in the same way. The stuff that we're building is going to be slightly different. It's going to cater more to slightly bigger companies, so we can sell into the LucaNet customer base. But like the day-to-day operations do not feel radically different, basically. I think if it felt like, okay, day one, you know, we're not using Slack anymore. We're not using like what, if it's felt like day one, we're now getting a Lenovo ThinkPad and all of this kind of stuff, and etc. I think that would have felt like a much bigger change. But because we're still like our own entity within LucaNet, team is the same, the reporting structure for us is the same. Like Lucas and I are still leading the Causal business unit, etc. It hasn't felt like a radical transition. It'll be more of a gradual thing, and I think I think that, they've still given us a decent amount of autonomy within LucaNet to kind of execute on the stuff the way we think is best. So yeah, it hasn't actually felt that radically different. But actually, one thing is that we used to have Causal HQ in London. We had our office situation, and now we're kind of moving to LucaNet's office in London. And I think we have like 10 more days of the lease on our office. And I think over the last few years, our office, the Causal HQ, it had kind of become this really nice community hub just for like us, our team, any like friends who are in town and need a place to crash. Like we're a remote first company, so most of the time, we didn't have like tons of employees working in the office. But like, yeah, often like friends would come and co-work. And like, we just like have people over, and it was just like, really nice sort of little community hub for, I'd say, us and like various people in the network, other founders and stuff like this. And so I think losing Causal HQ, so we had like a sort of little party for friends and family a couple of nights ago, which is probably going to be like the final party ever at Causal HQ. So I think that was quite sad of like, okay, yeah, now this really feels like an end of an era. Whereas on the work side, it didn't really feel like, oh, this is an end of an era. It felt like, yeah, we're like continuing doing the Causal stuff, just slightly different priorities and, within this bigger company. But it didn't feel like a radical shift in that sense.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about the office piece because, I guess Causal HQ is almost like a piece of cultural
Yeah,
history.
it is. Yeah. I mean, yeah, within like our sort of, yeah, I mean, you've been there a bunch. Like, yeah, I say within like our friends and sort of family and stuff, it's an institution, So, yeah, I think that's quite sad.
Interesting.
But yeah, one of the other sort of interesting things that I found is that actually the Microsoft suite is sick. I am loving Microsoft Teams, mate. Outlook, SharePoint. Genuinely, I'm not taking the piss.
What
I
the hell
think
is
the
SharePoint?
Suite. What?
Well, what
It's
is
like
SharePoint?
it's like Google Drive equivalent.
Oh, fine. Okay.
It's a bit like Google Drive crossed with, um, I don't know, Notion maybe. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because back in the day when I used to have an NHS email account, you could only ever you'd have to log into it from Outlook. There would be this option of like connect to a SharePoint account, and I would always think of this as being some arcane like Windows 95 type Microsoft situation for like big companies, and just sort of
No, it's
ignore
really,
it. I was always
it's really
curious.
good. Yeah, but Teams is incredible because Teams is like Slack and Zoom combined into a unified thing where any Teams call has like a corresponding group chat equivalent, which kind of persists, in the
Yeah.
Slack
Oh,
side
that's
of
handy. Yeah.
Teams. Um, yeah, I mean, just all the jumping around that we previously had to do where like, sometimes someone would start a Slack huddle, sometimes someone would send a Zoom link, sometimes would be on Gather or whatever. Like Teams is just, I mean, yeah, I just love how interconnected everything is. Um, And then
And
it's also
does
nice to be
Microsoft?
back using what?
Yeah. Does Microsoft have an? I feel like Microsoft have an actual Notion competitor now.
Yes, so it's called Loop.
Yep.
It's called Loop, and it's kind of like a shitty version of Notion, to be honest. Like it's
Mm.
definitely not as full featured. Design is kind of janky, experience is kind of janky. It doesn't seem like too many people use Loop. I think most people still use like Word 365 doc in the like
Mm.
SharePoint or something. Um, but yeah, that Loop has some way to go. But yeah, I've been quite impressed by the Microsoft suite, to be honest.
Oh, that's fun. That's interesting. That's a surprise. Do you now use Outlook for your emails instead of like Superhuman or something?
I use Superhuman for my like Causal email address and my personal email address. I use Outlook for my LucaNet email address, basically.
Hmm.
Yeah, one slightly annoying thing has been that I guess once you're a bigger company, you have to genuinely worry about like security and this kind of stuff. And so we can't have security clearance to use like random email clients, for example. So I can't use like my LucaNet email with Superhuman for security reasons,
Hmm.
and some stuff like this. But I think that's probably a smart move.
Yeah, that makes sense. Anything else about the acquisition that like you think is noteworthy? Like
Mm.
how long are you planning to stay? Do you know yet? Or like what's the situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're planning to stick around for the next few years, basically. I think if it was a situation where like, this, okay, so there's like a few different buckets of acquisitions when it comes to tech startups. The first bucket is what's called an acquihire, where um, they don't really care about your product. They're basically just acquiring you for your team, and then your team will just like start working for them. So that's kind of
Hmm.
bucket one. And like, if you have a company that's kind of not really going well, it's kind of clear it's, not really going anywhere, but like you want, a nice home for the team and stuff, then, some bigger company can like acquire you and you can all have like nice new jobs at the new place. Um, where they will value like your expertise in whatever area that you were working in, so it's useful for them and stuff. So that's kind of bucket one. Bucket two is kind of what I'd say ours was, where it's like, okay, you've got it was a product acquisition basically rather than acquihire, where they want to acquire like our product. Team is also very important, obviously, but like it's not like they're shutting down the product. They want to sort of integrate the product into their thing, um, and they want to keep the team around and they want everyone to stick around and like continue to build stuff and continue to grow the business within their business kind of thing. That's kind
Hmm.
of the bucket we were in. And then I think there's like the third bucket of like the sort of product acquisition, but like much bigger scale, the sort of Facebook acquires Instagram type of thing, or like Salesforce acquires Slack. Was it Salesforce?
Yeah.
I think Salesforce. Yeah, that kind of thing. Where they're buying the product, but they're also buying the whole business. Like for example, when they bought us, they weren't too fussed about like, oh, we're like buying X million of revenue that Causal has. It was more like, we're buying the product and like we're gonna grow it to much more revenue than what they have today. Whereas when like something like a Salesforce acquires Slack or like stuff like this, it's not just like, hey, we just want Slack the product. It's like, hey, we're buying Slack the whole business. Like, the revenue is important, the customers are important,
Yeah.
and often there's some like 4D chess kind of play. Like for example, like Facebook acquiring Instagram is literally like, hey, we think Instagram is about to outcompete us or whatever. Like it is a risk for Facebook if Instagram is out there as an independent company and everyone's doing photos on Instagram rather than Facebook. So we need to like, partially we're buying them for that reason as well. Um, whereas for us, it wasn't like, hey, LucaNet is worried that Caudal's gonna like eat their cake or something. Is that the phrase? Drink their
Yeah, eat their
milkshake.
lunch, I think.
Eat their lunch, yeah. Yeah, it was more like, hey, we want to add this product. It's a sort of better together kind of story,
Yeah.
rather than some like 4D chess of like you know yeah, the kind of stuff that happens at much bigger scale.
Okay. So what does that have to do with your choice to stay or leave or whatever?
Yeah, so I mean, I think if it were an acquihire, it would be a different situation. Where for us, it would probably feel like, okay, we'll probably stick around for a year or something, and then once, just recharge a bit and then sort of leave and do something else more interesting. Whereas I think because the product, the customers, the team, like we're still carrying on doing the causal stuff and we still get to do that, it feels like, okay, cool. It'll be pretty exciting to actually grow this thing a ton over the next few years. And we're also quite obviously financially incentivized to stick around and kind of drive that growth.
Okay. Nice. That sounds pretty fun.
Yeah.
How did
Yeah. I
it?
mean, I think it feels like, I think there's so much luck involved because I mean, we weren't in a situation where we were like, hey, let's try and sell the business. Let's talk to a bunch of people. It wasn't that kind of situation. The situation was like these guys sort of approached us and, for all the reasons I said, it's kind of a great like win-win-win for everyone. Um, but like, there's not that many companies out there that would do a product acquisition for something like Causal.
Yeah.
Maybe like a handful or something. And so like, if you're trying to sell a business or something, you kind of need a lot of stars to align I think if you're trying to sell a business at our scale, which is like quite small scale where like no one's buying you for your revenue, you kind of need a lot of stars to align to get like a good product acquisition, which is what we managed to do. And if, for example, we like, if like LucaNet didn't really care about buying Causal or whatever, and we kept going for the next couple of years, and maybe things didn't go so well, and like 2 years from now or a year from now, we're like, oh damn, things aren't going great. We should try and sell the business. Then we would have probably, well, yeah, it's very difficult to say how that would have gone down because the whole thing is just so illiquid. It's like, yeah, there's like maybe 5 companies in the world that would like acquire the product. Is one of them looking to acquire a product like this, like right now or not, basically? Yeah. So yeah, definitely feels like a ton of luck involved.
Interesting. So now that you've done the startup playbook, I guess, from beginning to, well, end insofar as you've now been acquired, and so now you can, yeah, with that, yeah, we've just started VoicePal about a year ago, maybe like 9 months ago. Doing reasonably well. I think we're on like 30 something thousand monthly recurring revenue.
Nice.
35K, 40K, something to that effect. Uh, it's a very different product because it's sort of like beta C slash beta solopreneur kind of product.
Prosumer.
Prosumer, yeah, rather than in B2B in your case. Any tips, any advice, anything that you would sort of, yeah, based on your experience?
Yeah, I mean, actually, just out of curiosity, what do you think about the new like ChatGPT advanced voice mode? Because I used that recently, and it seems like, well, my main feedback when I tried VoicePal was like, I wish it would just automatically. I wish I could just have a conversation with it rather than me like saying some stuff, submitting it, waiting a few seconds for a response and stuff. Do you feel like the advanced voice mode is going to like eat your lunch, or what do you think?
No. We actually built an advanced voice mode into Causal, into VoicePal, and I used it a bunch and found that I actually, for the use case of writing, I actually much preferred me just being able to monologue
Oh,
without it
okay.
interrupting me and having sort of trying to ask follow-up questions. There's a bunch of limitations around ChatGPT as well. I mean, I'm sure these will be fixed in time, but when it's having a conversation with back to you, it responds like really slowly, and you can't increase the playback speed. So it's just quicker to read a
Oh,
response than
okay.
it is to, "Hey, thank you so much. Wow, that's a great idea, Ali.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Why don't we explore more ways in which to explore this idea?" And I'm obviously like, "Oh,
yeah,
shoot me now," kind of thing.
yeah.
So no, I don't think so. It is always a risk with a product like this that like ChatGPT just builds the feature into their thing. There is also a bit of a thing around like with the latest iOS 18 voice notes now have a on-device transcription built into them. It's a bit shit right now, but of course it's going to improve over time. So someone could in theory someone could in practice record a voice note, take the transcript of that, chuck it into ChatGPT or Claude, etc., etc.
Yeah.
I think there will always be a group of people, kind of like with when Dropbox famously launched on Hacker News. And some dude in
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
comments was like, well, why would anyone ever use this product? Like, all you have to do is just whip up your own Linux server, FTP into a file server using the file server protocol, and just like upload the devices. Upload your various files. Like, no one's going to buy this. And it's sort of like been immortalized in history that,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
I think especially in the world of AI with the general apps like ChatGPT and Claude being so good, there is always a way you can kind of not pay the $9 a month for VoicePal and instead pay the $20 a month for ChatGPT and do all the functionality. But knowing that, and like everyone we know who's building AI products also knows that, and so we're part of the OpenAI developer program and the Anthropic developer program. We know what
Okay.
features they're releasing ahead of time so
Yeah.
that we can. I think what it'll come down to is really squarely going down the vertical of we help people write
Yes.
stuff
Yeah. Yeah.
faster
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
better,
Yeah. Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
than trying to be a generalist product, which
Yeah.
Apple has
Yeah.
to do and which ChatGPT has to do and all
Yep.
this.
Yeah. Yeah. I fully back the vertical thing. Yeah. I mean, I think that one learning for me is that I think it's worth thinking about M&A from earlier on. M&A meaning mergers and acquisitions. And actually, when we started down this road after we were approached by Luke and Ed, I talked to some other founders who had like sold their companies just to kind of get advice on, how to think about it. Should we do it? Like, how does the process work? Like, how do you feel after selling your company, kind of thing. And pretty much everyone said, yeah, for my first company, I didn't really think about M&A, and I didn't, because it's like, it's not a focus, right? It's like, hey, you're trying to grow your business. Um, and you hope to become the like next Instagram equivalent in your space or whatever it is, right? Um, but after they go through that experience once of selling the company, they're like, okay, damn, for my next company, I'm going to be a lot more thoughtful about this from earlier on, where you're sort of building the right relationships with people so that if it does come to it, and if for whatever reason you do want to sell the business at some point, you already have the relationships. You're not kind of starting from zero. Or if like one of these people that you've built a relationship with, probably they will be doing some M&A at some point in the next few years. And maybe your company's a good target, and maybe it's like a really good win-win type of scenario. And so, yeah, we didn't do like tons of M&A relationship building in a kind of deliberate fashion. Whereas, yeah, I think my advice would be, yeah, just do some of that, like even earlier on, um, because like
Right.
you know, most companies do not IPO or whatever. Like most people trying to start some like innovative product or something will sort of fail. Will fail to kind of become this breakout next Instagram type of thing. But there is this kind of like middle road which we were fortunate enough to be able to go down of like you know good outcome for everyone involved through M&A, where again I think the start we just sort of got lucky, right place right time type of thing. But um I think you kind of want to have that option essentially, because okay, for example, like it seems like VoicePal is going well, revenue is growing or whatever. Maybe it does so happen that like ChatGPT just basically like builds the thing, and then there's no reason for people to use VoicePal. But if that does happen, then there are probably other companies out there, that would want to add VoicePal functionality into their own product suite or whatever in some shape or form. And so if you guys reach a point in the business where you're like, okay, this isn't, we don't really think we can beat ChatGPT, or we don't really think like we can, make it out there as our own little product because it's just too niche or something, then there will be people that would buy it, and that could be a good outcome for you guys, your customers, et cetera, et cetera. Um, yeah, so I think just being a bit more forward thinking about, M&A.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, what's your take on product versus distribution these days?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've always wondered about these so-called debates because, like, obviously both are important, but I think the thing is, you kind of need to assume that you, basically it's not an either or, and the whole company is founded on the assumption that your product is useful and that there is a market for your product. Okay, And so you might as well act as if that is the case, because if that's not the case, then you're going to shut down the company or do like a major pivot or whatever. And when I say product, I mean, product, give or take, like some pivoting in the road to like refine it in the right way or whatever. I don't mean like it's exactly what you thought it would be on day one. I mean, like, broadly it's in the same space, et cetera, et cetera. So the whole company is kind of founded assuming that, hey, there is a product to be built for this type of customer, probably in this type of space. Like, and so then the question, I think, is, okay, like, what should we be focusing on, kind of thing? And, in the early days, obviously, there's going to be a lot of product development type of thing until you feel like it's ready to really go to market. And, there's different approaches there and stuff like that. But I think on the distribution side, there are things you can do in the early days that probably do not require, like, tons of work. It's not going to, like, seriously slow you down on the product development side if you're still in, like, the building phase or whatever. There are things you can do to lay the groundwork to make distribution a lot easier when you do want to, like, really start to scale it up. Depending on the product, that might be things like SEO, that might be various types of brand building, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think when we were in the earlier days, we were so caught up in like, okay, we need to like prove that the product actually has like a right to exist or something, we were like fully focused on like, hey, we need to figure out if there's really a market for this thing and like, all of that kind of stuff, which is true. You do need to figure that out. And if you conclude that there isn't, then like you should probably do a major pivot or shut down the company. But I think we should have probably spent some time on like, okay, look, assuming there is a market for this thing and we're not like a million miles off on this idea, what can we do now that will make our life easier to sell like to more customers in like 2 years or a year from now? And I think we should have like taken SEO more seriously as one example.
Oh,
I think we
okay.
did a good job on sort of brand building and stuff like that, but SEO was one of my regrets of not doing that.
Do you wish, with the benefit of hindsight, that you had done more personal brand building around you sort of making videos on LinkedIn and stuff and or YouTube talking about the product and like, the whole like Gary Tan, who's actually a former student of Part-Time YouTuber Academy, recently
Nice.
said on My First Million that like every CEO's job is to be a creator now, and if you're not being a creator
Yeah.
to some degree, you're like missing a vital part of your job. Like, what's your
Yeah.
take on that kind of view?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I mean, I think I did a pretty good job of that in my Twitter heyday, and actually, like, most of our brand building and like all of the kind of traction that we had in the early days was basically like through my Twitter and like through some like viral tweets and that TikTok and stuff like that. So I think we kind of accidentally did a good job of that on Twitter circa 2019 to 2021. I think 2022 onwards, Twitter changed quite a lot. Like, it still baffles me to this day, but like for some reason in 2020 and 2021, it just seemed like everyone was just really cared about B2B SaaS on Twitter. Like, people were genuinely interested, not in like some specific software that they can buy to solve a specific problem. They were interested in B2B SaaS as a concept, as a category of like, oh yeah, I want to know about all the B2B SaaS products. I want to see all these product launches. I want to see what's out there, etc. People were just like going crazy for like product launches for B2B products in a way that's like kind of unhinged. But that I think that world does not exist anymore. I think probably I think probably people are a bit tired of that kind of stuff for a while. But yeah, I think it definitely makes sense. I mean, we've had various periods of like doing a lot of videos on LinkedIn. Yeah. I mean, I would basically say like, just like start laying the groundwork. Depending on what industry you're in or whatever, that groundwork might be SEO. That groundwork might be like LinkedIn thought leadership content. That groundwork might be actually like YouTube stuff. I think YouTube is quite underrated for B2B right now. Just like start doing some of that stuff. I think it's a good idea.
Nice. If
And like,
anyone's
I also
listening
know
to
lots of successful founders who like, here's the thing. I mean, like one of the things I always thought about Causal is like, look, I think we've got a pretty good product. The customers who use it really, really like it. But it's not like just growing on its own. It's not just kind of like exploding automatically through word of mouth or something. Whereas there are products and companies out there that do next to no marketing. Their founders are extremely private and think it's cringe to post on LinkedIn and Twitter. And just because of, I guess, the market they're in, the product they've built, the way they do sales or something, it's just working. They're not having to like be the world-class marketers or world-class brand builders or anything like that. It is kind of just working. And so I'm kind of, more distribution is definitely good. But I'm also kind of, one thing that I was thinking a lot in the last year or so is kind of like, if it's going to be possible to kind of take this thing to market and kind of really scale up in an effective way, should it require that we're like massively innovative and just knocking it out the park on marketing? Because when I talk to, you hear some stories like Zapier, for example, where they've got this product that lets you like integrate a bunch of random things together. And they had this really clever idea around distribution, which was to build these like SEO pages for like every combination of integrations they have. And that genuinely like really worked for them, and that led to tons of traffic, etc., etc. You hear stories like that, but then most at the early stage, I'd say like below, let's say below 10 to 20 million ARR or something. So like early stage, companies like less than 100 people or something. The companies that we know, like the founders that we know who are doing well, when you ask them like, hey man, like how are you guys getting distribution? They don't have a clue. None of them are like, oh, well, this is our marketing strategy and we've got these 3 things that we do and we get 20% of our leads through this and then 50% through that. And we have this viral loop going on to like, capitalize on X. It's never like that. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think just word of mouth or something, I guess. Like, they're just not, it's just working basically because it's a really good product and it's in a really good market where people talk to each other, where people really need the thing that they're selling. And so I think the sort of, I think there is a kind of midwit area of like, oh my God, we need to be like going on all the channels and, we need to crack our marketing. Yeah, that's a midwit thing of like getting quite caught up in sort of, marketing with a capital M trademark. where like, if you had a better product and you were in a better market, like you wouldn't need to do so much marketing kind of thing. So like, yeah, there's some random thoughts.
Yeah, that's interesting. The thing that comes to mind is when it comes to books, like selling
Oh yeah.
books, general wisdom on this is that you kind of need to do a lot of marketing to get your first 1,000 to maybe 10,000 sales, depending on the industry. 1,000 or 10,000 is often the number cited. But beyond that point, it's literally just word of mouth. Like, if the book is good, people will recommend it to each other, and then it will grow. And so your initial push to your audience or your email list or your podcast or whatever is to launch it into the stratosphere. But the thing that will keep it in orbit is purely word of mouth. Like, is the product actually good? And so, like, all of the stuff trying to reverse engineer, like, well, James Clear went on 180 different podcasts. It's like, okay, but he also wrote a really freaking good book. So, like,
yeah.
What do you think of how does this vibe with first-time founders focus on product, second-time founders focus on distribution? And that all
Yeah, I
chestnut?
mean, I don't know how to pause that tweet or whatever. Yeah, I mean, if we start another company, like I said, I'd be more thoughtful about like laying the groundwork for distribution earlier on. Yeah, that's about it really. Yeah, obviously both are important. Yeah.
So how does it feel after you sell your company?
I think overall, I mean, it feels really good. Like, I think it was like really good for the business, really good for, great outcome for us, sort of financially, good outcome for the team. It was a good outcome for our earlier investors who like made some money. The later stage investors basically got their money back. So like, not terrible. They're not like complaining. It was probably better than they expected. They were probably like, okay, Causal's not like blowing up or something, so let's like write these guys down to zero or something like that. So yeah, I mean, yeah, all around, I think it was great for us, great for the business. Really good opportunity. So yeah, it definitely feels good. I mean, it did drag on a bit where like there's just a bunch of like legal stuff going on for like August, September, October, like 3 months of like very tedious like legal process of like talking to lawyers and negotiating random things and stuff like that. And so it hasn't really felt like a discrete moment of like, oh, we've like just sold the company or something. It was more like, okay, now like 4 or 5 months ago when we like signed the term sheet, we were like probably 80% sure that the deal would end up happening. And then as the like months of legal stuff progressed, like random stuff would come up where we're like, oh crap, it seems like the deal might fall apart or something. And then you kind of get past that stuff. And then, you kind of gradually go from like the 80% of like, okay, yeah, we're like 80% sure the deal will end up closing to like, 85, 90, 99, whatever. And then when it actually does close and like, the DocuSigns are all sent out or whatever, and the money arrives in the bank accounts, then it's kind of more like relief that it didn't like die along the way or something, because there's so many points where it can sort of die along the way. Um, yeah, there's a good book called The Magic Box Paradigm. It's basically a book about like M&A for startups and like how you should think about it and how you should like, run an M&A process and all of this kind of stuff. And there was a quote at the end that said like, company acquisitions are a bit like, it's a bit like having a baby, where like when you think about it, when you have like having a baby, you got like the pregnancy and then you've got the actual birth, and like so many things can go wrong, and it's so painful in so many ways. And, it's absolutely insane that like anyone does have a baby, but like people do have babies, and yeah, it's a miracle every time a baby is born because so much had to be overcome in order to make that happen. But it does happen, and yeah, I think the guy in the book basically says like, yeah, company acquisitions are a bit like that, where like if you've been through it, you'll think, oh my God, I'm surprised this ever works. There's just so many things that can go wrong. The stars had to align in so many different ways. It seems miraculous that, any of these deals actually happen. And it is miraculous that when it does happen, but like it happens actually quite a lot. So
That's interesting. Huh. Did you have like a signing party? Is there like one of these where you sign the thing and then you're like refreshing your bank account to see the wire hit, and then you go out and buy a box set of Lost or like whatever the whatever the trope is?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we sort of had so like a few weeks ago, maybe like 2 weeks after the deal closed, a bunch of the LucaNet team came to London, like all of their like the CEO and execs and stuff came to London. We flew out our team from the US and various parts of the world to London. So we had like a big London offsite, where we all kind of got together in person, and we had like, some social stuff. We had like a little party at our office with our employees, which was like nice and intimate. And then the LucaNet folks like, organized like a dinner and stuff like that. So yeah, we had a few of those kinds of celebrations. I mean, my main thing, once the cash was distributed, part of me was like, I shouldn't like just randomly buy. I shouldn't like randomly buy stuff. It just seems like a bad way to live. Well, then part of me was like, you know what? Like, I can get myself a treat. It's not gonna be crazy. I can get myself a treat. And I thought, okay, let me get a TV. We had like kind of a TV. It wasn't. I think it wasn't even like. It probably wasn't even like 4K. It definitely wasn't OLED. I was like, you know what? We watch a bunch of TV shows. Maybe as a treat, I'll buy myself a TV. And I was doing some research on like OLED. I was like, okay, this is like the best TV for like under £1,000. This can be like my little acquisition treat to myself. And then we almost bought the TV, but then it turned out Lucia's dad had a spare OLED in the house. And we ended up taking that, so I didn't even like get the TV. But we do have a nice TV now.
Which TV is it, by the way? Because we're thinking of doing the same, and I've been avoiding.
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, Lucia's dad just happened to have this. He bought it last year, and like it wasn't really being used. So I wouldn't like think that this is the optimal
No, no,
one.
but like, which one did you? What was your
Oh,
conclusion?
right. Um, it was going to be. Oh, I can't remember what it was going to be actually. I think I think depending on the price range. I think if you want to pay around £1,000 or just above for like a 55-inch type of thing, I think Samsung have the best thing in that bracket where it's
Mm.
like, yeah, just like pretty optimal. If you're willing to pay like, I don't know, 3K or something, then I think like Sony has some like more premium ones or something. I don't, yeah. Whatever.
Okay, cool,
Wait, dude.
fair.
Oh yeah, dude. OLED is insane. OLED is incredible.
Is it?
This is the best. I'm surprised there's not more fanfare about this, but I think OLED is like the best consumer technology, maybe like on par with ChatGPT and stuff like this, that has come
What?
out in my memory. It's absolutely insane. When you're looking at when you're watching something on an OLED TV, it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like you're watching it on a TV. It feels like the TV is a portal into this other world, and you are just watching what is happening in this other world through the portal. It does not feel like, oh, there's like a pane of glass there that's like
Yeah.
projecting the light, or whatever. It's mental. I mean, we've watched a bunch of stuff on it over the last sort of month or two. Watched like Westworld season one. Westworld is gorgeous on the OLED, mate.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, every single time, like I do not get bored of like seeing something on the OLED. Every time I'm like, wow, this looks amazing. Why did I not get an OLED like 3 years ago? I mean, they've only just become like affordable. I remember like a few
Yeah.
years ago, not that long ago, like less than, or like 5, 6 years ago, if you wanted an OLED, you would be paying at least like, the starting point was maybe 2 or 3 thousand pounds for like the smallest one or something. Whereas now, like a normal person can have an OLED TV, basically, and
Yeah.
it's incredible.
Okay, nice. I've asked Izzy to get me an OLED TV for Christmas if we can't find a brand deal with Sony or Samsung or LG before then.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, we might be getting like a nice TV in the house. I've been campaigning
Yeah,
for it for a while. Izzy's been resistant because at the moment we don't have a TV in the house,
yeah.
and it means that in the evenings, the thing to do is either play the piano, play the guitar, read, or talk to each other. All of which are like,
Lame.
yeah, fairly productive ways to spend time. But tonight, actually, for the first time, Izzy said to me this morning, "Hey Ollie, do you want to watch Batman Begins tonight for a date night?" And I was like, "Wait, what?" Because I've also been saying to Izzy, but and anytime we're on a flight, I'll look at them because Izzy's not seen The Dark Knight or The Dark Knight Rises or Batman Begins, and so I've been like, "Okay,
Yeah,
you need to watch The Dark Knight because that's my favorite film of all time." But Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises are always available on the in-flight entertainment thingies, but
yeah.
Batman Begins isn't, and I kind of feel,
Uh,
and so it's like, yeah, we're gonna have like a chill normie date night tonight, potentially watching Batman Begins, if it ends up materializing, in which case we'll just whack out the laptop
yeah,
and put it
yeah,
on
yeah,
the
yeah,
sofa,
yeah,
extend it on like a little table or something.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, look, we kind of had the same thing where we had this kind of old crappy TV. Um, we didn't really have like a great place for it. Like, there's no good place for the TV in the living room. It would kind of be in the
Hmm.
way and stuff. And so we just weren't using it for ages, and it was just like under the sofa, not being used. And then once we had the baby and like we were both on leave, then we were like, okay, let's whack out the TV. And we kind of set it up. I mean, we still don't have an amazing place for it, but we kind of set it up in our like small extra room where I am now. It was kind of a janky setup. But immediately we were like, this is sick. Why did we have this like anti-TV thing before? And now that we have the OLED, I mean, I love this room. This is like the den. Like, we've got like a sofa behind me. Um, it's not like super optimized for the TV thing, but the normie thing of having like nice TV, sitting down with a meal and watching it, dude, it's incredible. It's so good.
Have you
Yeah.
got a soundbar for it yet? Because I've heard soundbars for TVs are also one of those things that once you get it, you're like, whoa, how did I ever live without a soundbar?
I haven't, to be honest. I mean, I think I've always been very sensitive to like monitors and like screens, and I think I'm quite discerning. Like, I can tell, you know, when it's good and when it's not good. Whereas
Mm.
some people are like, oh yeah, what's the difference between, you know, the like 5K 27-inch and the 1080p 24-inch or something, whatever. I've always like been quite sensitive to like the visual side. I
Yeah.
feel like I've never been that sensitive to the sound side, and I'm sure the soundbar would be better, but like I can't even conceive of what I'm missing out on. And I
Mm.
did think like like I do go on Amazon sometimes, and I get the soundbar recommendations, and I'm like, oh, that could be fun because it's always fun to buy a new gadget, you know.
Yeah, of course.
But then I think I don't really know what I'm missing out on, and like it feels like the experience is like pretty maxed out already. So
Yeah.
why introduce that into my life? You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
What
Fair.
do you think?
I don't know. I also haven't. I haven't done an A/B test. Like last time I was at Izzy's house in London with her parents because they've got a soundbar and her
Okay.
dad is super into like TV tech and like tech
Audio
in
stuff.
general
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff. And so I was trying to do a bit of an A/B test to be like, can I really tell the difference before and after? But then for some reason the soundbar wasn't working, and so I didn't quite experience the
yeah.
thing. Because I've
Yeah.
also been watching the stuff on the internet where everyone says like, oh, you have to get a soundbar. Soundbar
Oh,
changes your
really?
life. Apparently.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm
Vision
surprised.
Pro. Vision Pro
Oh,
for
yeah.
watching stuff though is interesting. Have you got a Vision Pro?
No, I don't know. I mean, you said I shouldn't get one. You said it's crap.
Yeah, it's a bit of a waste of money. But it's really good as a solo watching TV device. It is
Yeah.
like it's you know when flying. I think I was flying to the US or something. I was like, you know what? I'm going to bust out the on the airplane, and I sort of downloaded a bunch of episodes of Succession on Apple TV, and yeah, it's basically just an incredible like TV watching experience where you're sort of lying down. It's like literally positioned wherever you want it to be. You
And
can
the
set it up
resolution
so
is
that
good. Like it's really high resolution.
it's like insanely high resolution. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's high resolution
Like
in that, like for example, a cinema screen is not that high resolution,
yeah, yeah,
but
agreed. Yeah, because of the
it's
distances.
taking so much field of view that like the
Yeah.
resolution almost doesn't really matter. Um, so that's quite a nice experience. The problem is that you can't really share it with anyone, and so you're just sort of like this hermit
Yeah.
in a headset or watching TV on your own and thinking,
Is this all life is about?
yeah, yeah, just getting locked in.
Hmm.
Nice. All right, good stuff. Well,
Right.
thanks for sharing the news. And maybe in the next episode, which we'll do at some point, we'll talk about more about parenting type stuff because I have a bunch of things that I want to ask you about it. But I feel like it's a good
Nice.
place to end for today.
Yeah, I think the baby's getting a bit unsettled, so
Nice.
better sort that out.
All right.
Thanks,
Good
everyone.
stuff.
See you in the next.
Catch you later. Bye.